My global challenge is overfishing. Overfishing is a problem that occurs when fishermen catch more of a species of fish than the population can naturally accommodate through reproduction. This is a classic tragedy of the commons scenario, where an unregulated fishery is an open-access commons for fishermen to take what they please and destroy what they must, with no repercussions. It used to seem as if fishermen would profit from seemingly infinite supplies of fish. This is clearly not the case, as modern-day research tells us that nearly 2/3 of the world's fisheries are depleted or at the very least overexploited. We need to stop this problem, as so many people around the world rely on the oceans as a sustainable source of income and nutrition, such as fishermen for their livelihood, and as well as the 3 billion people around the world who rely on fish as their primary source of protein. In America, a shortage of fish would not be the biggest problem, as we have other common sources of protein. But in other locations, such as coastal Africa and Asia, we will be exposing communities to food scarcity and food insecurity, which would be a global crisis. While researching a solution to overfishing, it became apparent that I must ensure that the number of fish removed from the ocean equals the number of fish that the stock has the power to reproduce. Knowing this, I was initially attracted to a consumer-based approach, where organizations like Oceana use their power and their funding to educate the public about what they could do to be fighting overfishing. This would include telling the public that they should eat lower and more locally on the food chain, and also only eating fish with a stamp of approval from the Marine Stewardship Council Sustainable Seafood Seal. But after further research, I realized that this was not broad nor impactful enough of a solution to fight such a global problem such as overfishing. So, with the help of the article Towards a Sustainable Fishery by Eric M. Singer, I adopted a top-down approach to be the most beneficial solution to overfishing. A top-down approach being a regulatory system enforced by the federal government on fishermen and fisheries in order to ensure that overfishing no longer continues. My solution is comprised of 2 steps. 1, installing the Singer's suggested price cap, and 2, my favorite, placing a ban on trawl net fishing. So Singer's price cap works to disincentivize overfishing by capping the market price at a certain amount of fish. Production cost increases with the amount of fish caught. So once the acceptable yield of fish is exceeded, additional fish would cost more to produce than the market price for which they can be sold. This would cause fishermen who exceed the amount of yield to be operated at a net loss, and therefore it would encourage fishermen to catch less fish. Essentially, the system would work as less fish caught would equal less production costs, which would result in an increased market price, and therefore fishermen who caught less fish would be rewarded. So as we can see on this chart here, that as less fish are caught, the production cost stays low and the market price is high. But as they exceed the acceptable yield of fish at 40 and a market price at 15, the market price will continue to decrease as they exceed this amount. Therefore, fishermen will be encouraged to catch less fish. This system could be related to rent control. Although they are both different systems, they work in different ways. But they also have a similar fashion in which rent control works to supply affordable housing, where a price cap creates a smaller, sustainable amount of fish. So part 2 of my solution in banning trawl net fishing is very important to me, especially after I read about all the problems that trawl net fishing creates for the underwater ecosystems. Trawl net fishing is essentially a ginormous weighted net being dragged through the ocean floor by 2 larger ships. This net does not differentiate from what it catches, and It completely obliterates the bottom of the ocean by destroying the plants and the coral reefs and the habitats of these animals at the bottom of the floor. It also is responsible for the disposal of 7 million tons of protected and non-commercial fish yearly. This includes fish like dolphins, sharks, and turtles that aren't consumed but are extremely important to the world's underwater ecosystems. Therefore, trout net fishing should be banned. My problem and solution are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 14, Life Below Water. This goal advocates to conserve and sustainably use our oceans and marine resources in order to achieve sustainable development. This goal also works to keep fish stocks at a sustainable level, which the price cap approach and the end of trout net fishing would work towards. It also agrees that with my top-down approach, in that countries should work to create regulatory and institutional frameworks to manage overfishing and their resulting problems.